And what's up, guys? And welcome to the very first episode of Coast to Coast Gridiron, a football podcast. On today's episode, it'll be a little bit of an introductory to the podcast, a little bit about who I am, and a few other things going on in the football world. Um, so I'm Cole. I'll be the host of Coast to Coast Gridiron Football Podcast, and obviously, with the title of the podcast, it'll be a podcast related about football, talking about football. Um, Something that two of my bigger hobbies in life are listening to podcasts and watching or playing or coaching football. So on this, I kind of want to just combine the two and really excited to see where this goes. Really excited to see where this takes me, and just kind of really excited to be back in an environment where I'm kind of talking to people about football or just expressing my opinions and my takes on football, or maybe it's debating a football take with my friends. So, super excited to see where this journey goes. Super excited to begin this journey, and just super excited to do something that's kind of a little bit out of my comfort zone and push me to my limits and see where I can take this thing. So, super excited to see where we end up on this journey. So, um, for a little while now, I've kind of wanted to create some sort of podcast or maybe some sort of platform where I'm able to talk about football with myself, my friends, and other people, and just get a good conversation going about football. And I really feel like this is a platform I'm able to use and hopefully take advantage of and do kind of what I've been planning and kind of envisioning for a little while now. So with Coast to Coast Gridiron, um, I kind of for a little while I've been unsure of kind of a direction I wanted to go in a podcast, whether that be alone or with a co-host or what specifically in the football world I wanted to talk about. And finally I've kind of got my head around kind of the direction that I want to go, and I think it's a good direction for myself, and I think there'll be a lot of other fans that'll enjoy the type of content that I'm going to put out there, and I'm just really excited to see how it turns out in the end. So what the podcast will kind of be more so about will be my two favorite football teams. One being in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, and then number two being the BC Lions in the CFL. Obviously, the NFL is probably the biggest sports brand in the world, other than like compared to like the NHL and the NBA and the NBA MLB. Just the numbers it produces, it's kind of unmatched in a way. So I feel that there's kind of a lot of obviously podcasts and content and just stuff out there in the NFL. So we will definitely be talking NFL and breaking down news and stuff like that. But on this podcast, we'll definitely be more specifically talking about the Buffalo Bills and kind of how they're doing, what they're doing, and all kinds of things. Hopefully, having some special guests on, whether it be some reporters in Buffalo or former players, hopefully current players. Um, Obviously the NFL is always having news, so it's kind of hard to not talk about it. So like I said, some more of that like Super Bowl stuff, draft stuff before the season, kind of maybe predicting who I think will be the playoffs kind of thing. But when we get into the season, it'll kind of be more so Buffalo Bills related and maybe just some more of the bigger stories all year long. And then the BC Lions, I live in British Columbia, Canada. So obviously they're the home team, so I got to cheer for them, and I don't got to cheer for them. I really enjoy being a Lions fan, and in the last, I'd say 2 years here, kind of realizing what it means to be a Lions fan and represent BC football and BC Lions fans. So we will be talking a lot about BC Lions, but we also will be kind of vice versa to the NFL, how the NFL has a lot of coverage and a lot of content out there. I feel like the CFL doesn't have enough, and I feel like something I can do or something that hopefully this podcast can do is shine a little bit more light on its players and its league and the level of play in this league, because I think it's a high level league, second best league in the world in my opinion, behind the NFL if in terms of pro football. So we will be spending a little bit more time on the league and covering the league as a whole in terms of yeah, we will be covering the BC Lions because they're my favorite team, so we will be talking about them a little bit more than the CFL. But I definitely want to spend a little bit of time focusing on, just like I said, shining a little bit of light on the league itself and the level of play in the league. So that's kind of a baseline of what the podcast will be about. Um, Kind of a little bit, I'll get into a little bit why I wanted to start it. Um, I've been passionate about football from a very young age. Grew up in a football family where it was on TV from a young age, and I had family members go down south to go to NFL stadiums and watch games and stuff like that. So from a young age, it's been around and it's been on the TV and stuff like that. So um, very passionate about football, very passionate about the game. Um, Love the game, honestly. And I've been wanting to do a podcast for a while, like I said. So I think this is a great time to get into it in the content world that we live in now. Like I said, I feel like the CFL doesn't have enough content, so I feel like hopefully I can do a good job there filling a void and stepping up and really covering the league in a way that isn't kind of right now. There's a few people out there that right now that cover the CFL in a good way, I'd say, but I'd say not enough for the league and for the league to grow a little bit more. So um, like I said, I'll be the host of the podcast. I do plan on hopefully having some special guests. I definitely plan on having some of my friends I love football on, debating, having some good roundtable chat with them. But like I said, I do hopefully plan on having some special guests, and I don't plan on being alone very often. Maybe once every other month, or when we're in the season, once every other episode, something like that. Hopefully most times I'll plan on having whether it's a special guest, that's my friend, like I said, a reporter in one of the various cities, whether it's Buffalo or Vancouver, um, current former players, you name it. Hopefully some other content creators I'll have on here, other podcast hosts. So that'll kind of be who will be on the podcast. Um, Now when will I be recording episodes is the kind of thing that I'm still a little bit unsettled, uncertain as of now. Um, in terms of the off season, I'm thinking about either once every 2 weeks or maybe once every month, just because content's and like I said, in the NFL, there's kind of always content, always news. But in the CFL, it's a little bit harder. Obviously, we have free agency coming up. The draft will be coming up, so likewise in the NFL. But I think in terms of the off season, I'll be recording maybe once every 2 weeks or once a month and posting those episodes. But once we're in the season, yes, that'll be June. Once we're in the CFL season, once we're in the BC Lions season, I'll be posting probably once every week, doing just pregame pods for the Lions, pregame week like weekly matchup build ups for the CFL. And then once we get into September there, I'll definitely continue weekly episodes when the Bills season starts, and it'll be a lot of content going then. So it'll be a fun time when we get into August, September next year, and I'm really excited to see how much the podcast has grown by then. Um, where you can expect to get this, I will definitely be uploading to YouTube. Just started the YouTube channel for the podcast a few days ago. Still in the works of getting my Apple Podcast connected and set up. So stay tuned on that. But you can go to YouTube right now at Coast to Coast Gridiron, a football podcast. You should be able to find it. Be sure to subscribe, and that's kind of, as of now, other than my Twitter, that's how you'll be able to keep updated and be be stay in the loop with the podcast in terms of when episodes drop and kind of what's going on in that way. So a little bit about myself. Like I said, I grew up in a football family, love football from a very early age. With that, like I said, grew up in a football family, so kind of funny how it worked out, but somehow I was a Bills fan in a family of Chiefs, Niners, Vikings, and Broncos fans. Um, not really sure of kind of how the love for the Bills started. All my family say is that I just picked them from a very young age. I was given a Bruce Smith jersey for my one of my earliest birthdays. One of my earliest memories is kind of running around the house with a Bills jersey that was down to my knees, and at the time you didn't have things like DAZN, and you didn't have just a few, like, you didn't have the option to watch a few games. At the time it was, you had the option to watch the Seattle Seahawks probably play, and you had an option to probably watch one other team play in the it would be the 10 o'clock and then the 1 o'clock schedule there. So from an early age, it was more so of being a fan from afar, being a fan by playing things like Madden, or playing things like Madden on my DS, on my GameCube, other various systems. Um, and the love just kind of kept growing and growing, and it's very odd to say because they weren't really successful, and they were in the middle of a drought, and it was years past the Super Bowl years. I had no recollection of how good we were in the 90s growing up and stuff like that until I got a little bit older, and I understood kind of how dominant we were, and the feat of going to 4 straight Super Bowls and what that meant. But until maybe about 2006, 2007, when I got a little bit older, I was about 10 years old. I kind of understood the players a little bit more. I understood the roster a little bit more. I would be able to find games here and there on Sundays, or I would pay attention more on NFL.com when it'd be like the little ball would move on the field, and it would say rushed for blah 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 certain yards, or you threw the ball for certain yards, and that's how I watched the games on a little screen that a football went up and down on. Um, so from an early age, I was a Bills fan, but I was more of a Bills fan from afar, really not being able to watch games, not being able to have a really opinion or a good take on the team and how it was doing. I was just a blind Bills fan that loved football and loved the Bills. So that was good enough for me. Um, I kind of remember my first days of kind of remembering the Bills would be kind of the JP Lossman, Trent Edwards kind of years, EJ going into EJ Manuel. Um, some really down times. Like I said, we were in the middle of a drought. We were in the middle of not going to the playoffs for 17 straight years. So it was tough times being a fan, but for whatever reason, I made it out. There were some definitely dim years when in 2010, 2011, when I got into grade 8, really kind of started to love the NFL and really understand football. And Cam Newton came into the NFL, and I grew a pretty big affinity for him. And I even at one point had a Cam Newton jersey. I never thought that I would have memorabilia from another team. For those grade must have been 9 to 11, I definitely repped Carolina stuff, and definitely repped Cam Newton jersey. But then for whatever reason, we kind of started getting better. It was the end of kind of that Ryan Fitzpatrick, Kyle Orton going into Tyrod Taylor, and LaShawn McCoy taking over kind of. And when Tyrod Taylor got there, I kind of really, my love for the Bills grew even more, and it just really took off from there in terms of how I felt for the, or how I followed the team, how much I followed the team, how much it kind of meant to me on game days, win or lose, how much unfortunately it would kind of affect me when the Bills would lose. And then just after the Tyrod Taylor years, obviously we were blessed and were able to draft Josh Allen and kind of change the fortunes of the franchise. Now we're in the middle of, I believe it's 5 of 6 years going to the playoffs. 3 straight years of the AFC East champs. 3 straight years of at least getting to the divisional round. Obviously, that's not what we want. And nobody, you won't find another Bills fan other than me, like more than me, that'll preach. I'm not hanging my hat on 3 straight years going to the divisional round and saying that's a victory. I definitely want Super Bowls rather than bragging about playoff appearances. But as of now, that's kind of what I got to hang my hat on, and kind of just how times have changed, and kind of as a Bills fan, I've tried, at least this past year, I've tried to kind of appreciate the good, because there were some really dark times and really a lot of losing seasons. So now that we're kind of, this year, as bitter as I was and as shitty as it was to lose in the playoffs there, We were 14-4 on the year, including playoffs. Only losing 4 games all year long. 3 of those games in the regular season by 8 points. So we really did have a good year. It didn't end the way we wanted it to. Whether you're a coach, player, fan, right? The players want to win more than the fans want to win. I can tell you, I can guarantee you that. So, as bad as we want to win as fans, players want to win double the amount that you do. So I'm just very thankful for the team that I have, and hopefully one of these years they can pay me off with a Super Bowl, and I'll take that over anything. And switching gears, getting into how I became a BC Lions fan. I believe it was the summer of '05, or no, must have been '06. The year the BC Lions won the 2006 Grey Cup against the Montreal Alouettes. It was the summertime. I don't remember which week it was. I know the BC Lions were playing the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I was out camping. My mom brought a radio. We had stumbled upon, I don't remember if it was 1040 or what the station was, but the Lions game was on the radio. And we were eating dinner at the time, and we decided to, you know what, we're going to listen to, being a football family, you know what, we're going to listen to the BC Lions game on the radio, not being out camping, not having a TV. So we were like, you know what, we'll really enjoy this. Ended up being a really good game. I believe it went into overtime, or it was like a walk-off field goal, but the BC Lions ended up winning the game. And it kind of just grew my fandom for the Lions from there. Kind of funny, like I alluded to. Later that season, my first season watching them, or kind of even knowing who it was, which is kind of bad being from BC, being a football fan, but I never knew who the BC Lions were, that we even had a pro football team, or even that I'm honestly, I must not have known that the CFL existed at that time. So, being 9 years old, I was finally introduced to the CFL and kind of what it was and what kind of league it was. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed watching it. Later that season, the 2006 season, the BC Lions would go on to win the Grey Cup. And then my fandom just kind of even grew more from there, being a football fan. I remember going to a couple play with the pro BC Lions football camps over in Vancouver, where you're able to go do some like individual drills and stuff like that, and kind of run around with the pros, being a little youngster, being a little gaffer. And that was fun for me. And then I guess it went into, I guess, what, 5 years later, I was still a Lions fan, still loving the Lions, going to games. I remember going to games with my dad, and we would get the 7-Eleven packages. I believe it was like 30-40 bucks or something like that. You get 2 tickets in the end zone, you get 2 hot dogs, and you get like a Slurpee or something from 7-Eleven. And I remember, because going back and forth from my parents' house, my dad would pick me up on a Friday maybe, and if the Lions were playing, we usually go to the game and then go back to my grandparents' house, and I'd spend the weekend with them. So some very good memories going to the Lions games as a kid. They won the Grey Cup in 2011. Like I said, there were some down years around that time for the Bills, so I kind of was turning into I wouldn't say a diehard Lions fan, but I really enjoyed watching the Lions. I really enjoyed watching the CFL. But then with that came some hard times for my Canadian football team in the Lions. And after the 2011 season, it was kind of a few dim years. Obviously, it wasn't too bad. I believe we made the playoffs in 13 and 14. We definitely made the playoffs in 14. But then after 14, I believe it was a long time until we made it back to the playoffs. I think it was like maybe 19 or maybe even 18 when we had to cross over and play Hamilton and got absolutely waxed. So around, I'd say maybe 2014, that last playoff push, I remember going to a game in my grade 11 year with a buddy of mine. And that was my last game for a while. And just for whatever reason, I kind of fell out of touch. I was getting older. Maybe extracurriculars like hanging around with my friends and stuff like that was becoming a little bit more important than staying at home on a Friday night or Saturday night and watching the BC Lions play. I'd maybe be out hanging out with my friends a little bit more. So around those years, around that age, I kind of started slowly growing out of the Lions a little bit. I obviously followed them, and kind of the good thing about social media is always you kind of I was still in touch of how they were doing. And then, like, obviously, like I alluded to, they weren't doing the best in those years. So it was a little bit more easier for me to okay, I'm just gonna go hang out with my friends and I'll catch the Lions score later, and opposed to whether if they were winning, maybe I would have been okay. I want to watch this game. I want to kind of um make sure I'm watching this team play. Um, but after COVID, 2021, I believe was the first year that they played. I was trying to stay in touch with the few podcasts and content that is out there during the 2020 season in terms of whether they're going to play, whether the league was had enough money to kind of support a pandemic season like this. It was kind of it was eye-opening to me, just the level of play, but just the money that the league kind of lacks in terms of backing and support. And just I was super curious and hopeful if the league was going to survive and be able to come out on top of the pandemic and everything that kind of happened to everybody in those years. So after the pandemic, I had my eye on the CFL a little bit more, and I was kind of I was gonna dive back in and kind of be a fan. So 2021, the Lions signed, or 2020, sorry, the Lions signed Mike Riley, I believe. Obviously, COVID happened, so 2021, I believe, was his first season, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Um, So getting into it, I won't spend too much time honestly on that. I will spend more so time on going into that week. I believe the Lions open up playing Saskatchewan Roughriders in Saskatchewan. If you're a CFL fan, you know kind of the hostile environment that the Prairies bring, whether that's Winnipeg, whether that's Sask, and kind of the diehard that the Prairies fans are for their teams. Um, Going into that week, I believe Mike Riley had not practiced, and it was a rookie quarterback by the name of Nathan Rourke. If you ever heard that name before, getting a majority of the snaps in practice that week. I believe Mike Riley warmed up as the number one and was for most people. I think they thought that Mike Riley would go and be the starter for that week, but I believe moments before the kickoff, even Coach Campbell backed up that belief and said Mike Riley's going to start this game, and then they trot out Nathan Rourke on the first snaps of the game, and he goes out there, and I believe it was a tough start. He threw, I believe it was a couple picks. Um, Looked like, oh gosh, this kid might get rattled in his first start, but I believe he got pulled. Mike Riley got put in there, and you could see that his elbow wasn't right. He was throwing some ducks up there. I believe Nathan got ended up getting put back in and kind of leading a little bit of a comeback and trying to will his team back to victory in his first career professional start. So um, I kind of always remember that throughout the season. Mike Riley had tried to come back and play through injury, and the Lions weren't the greatest that year. They had just missed the playoffs or just missed crossing over, if I'm not mistaken. Rourke had started, I believe, two other games other than that one. And I'd kind of just always remember that Nathan Rourke kid and kind of wanting to see more, and kind of as the season got a little bit tougher and playoffs looked a little bit more like it wasn't going to happen, I kind of stopped watching a little bit more, and was kind of just more hopeful and kind of waiting for Nathan Rourke to take over. And then obviously that offseason happened. Mike Riley retires. Nathan Rourke is handed the keys. The rest is history, and he is a Jacksonville Jaguar now. So this year really kind of re-energized my love for the sport. Seeing the level of play in the league, the Lions being good, Nathan Rourke being historic, the Bombers on the verge of being, I would even say they're a dynasty, but historic of kind of almost winning that 3P. Andrew Harris winning three straight Grey Cup championships. Really just this year really brought some really big energy back into me in terms of wanting to cover the CFL, wanting to watch the CFL. I can absolutely not wait for a Grey Cup 2024 in Vancouver. Seeing all the festivities in Saskatchewan this year made me just so giddy and so excited for what 2024 is going to bring, and kind of the party that's going to be in Vancouver. And I cannot wait to be there and be in attendance and kind of just experience Grey Cup week. And kind of check that off the bucket list for Canadian sports fans, and I think football fans as a whole. That's definitely it's the championship for the CFL. So yes, it's the equivalent of the Super Bowl at the Super Bowl week for the Grey Cup. So that's definitely a bucket list thing for me to go to, and I cannot wait for 2024. So a little bit kind of why I wanted to cover CFL athletes, especially Canadian ones. Obviously, sorry, I shouldn't say obviously. I played 5 years of contact tackle football. All 5 years of my high school career, from grade 8 to grade 12 in my high school here in Nanaimo, British Columbia, at Nanaimo District Secondary. I went on to play 3 years at or for the VL Raiders in the CJFL. That's the Canadian Junior Football League, where Andrew Harris played his junior football, and then went on to the CFL and all his great things. And just playing the game, I've come across a few guys now that have made it to CFL or NFL, and just kind of wanted to shine a light on their journeys and shine a light on how talented they are in terms of the world of football, and just other guys coming from bigger cities with a lot more opportunities and a lot more resources out there for them to get better and stuff like that. I want to really focus on the guys that maybe made it out of say junior football, or maybe made it out of these smaller cities, and kind of put their city or put their junior football team on the map. And watching the CFL this year, I want to say it's close to maybe every CFL team, if not maybe like multiple on a few CFL teams. So I would say there's at least double digit former junior football players in the CFL now. And just wanting to cover them, even CIS players, some of the good CIS players that come out and kind of take over the league, and just watch them now. Obviously playing football, something that's kind of something that everyone kind of alludes to when you're done playing or you're kind of out of it, is kind of missing the locker room vibes, and talking with your boys and talking with your teammates, and kind of the whole on a road trip with your boys, and you're in the back of the bus and you're just shooting the shit, you're having good combos, you're debating ball, you're debating whatever, right? And that's kind of what I want to bring style wise in this podcast, where we're just having a good time, we're able to be comfortable, we're able to have a nice conversation, we're able to debate back and forth. And so, you know what, sometimes it might get heated with your brother, and it might get heated with your guest, but you're able to stay able to understand that it's just a good debate, and it's just a good conversation, and you're not able to get caught up in that argument. And that's kind of the energy and kind of flow I want to have to this podcast, whether it's kind of the more back of the bus vibes, or it's maybe the pre-practice or pre-game vibes where you're just chatting with your boys and you're just talking ball. So that's kind of the energy and direction I kind of want to go with just my playing experience, and then mixing that together with a podcast related to football. So in terms of an introduction, I'm really not sure if I can cover anything else. If you're curious, please get at me on Twitter. Get at me in the comments. And I would love to share a little bit more. But without further ado, I think maybe just get into a little bit of football news and kind of what's happening in the football world, and then we'll get out of here and we'll call it a day and call that episode 1. So super excited, but let's get into it. So unfortunately, not much CFL news. Obviously, Bo Levi Mitchell, if you're not aware, just signed in Hamilton. I think it's been he obviously, I believe, signed there to end last year, but was a free agent, so I wasn't sure if he was going to sign there. But I think if you're Hamilton, you were never probably second guessing that. And if you're Levi Mitchell, you're probably never second guessing playing next year other than in Hamilton. So in terms of CFL news, not much other than the Bo news. CFL free agency starts here in a few weeks, just after the Super Bowl. I believe it's Valentine's Day, February 14th. Other than that, a little bit of sad news today. TB12, Tom Brady, the GOAT of football, retired this morning from the sport for the second time. To me, I think it's he means at this time his final time. I like that he was able to break it himself. There was no reporting. There was no speculating. Tom Brady was able to make a video, post it to his social medias, put it out there, and get his narrative across, and get what he wanted out there. Now, being a Bills fan, I'm not sure how the fan base is, especially in Buffalo, because I'm so far away. But being a fan of the NFL now, being a fan of football, I've kind of gotten to the point where, you know, Tom Brady took it to my team for basically my entire fandom of being a Bills fan up until he left. I believe it was something like 33-13. He went against my team, which is hurts my soul, hurts me to say, but I love the game of football too much to kind of underappreciate or disrespect his legacy and what he meant. The greatest football player of all time, the greatest to ever lace him up, the greatest to ever strap it up. Um, the greatest football player that I've ever seen. Just the ultimate winner. I was I wasn't fortunate, sorry. I wasn't fortunate to grow up watching Michael Jordan. Um, I was fortunate to kind of watch the tail end of Kobe Bryant. But I kind of being in the same division, I got to see them every year and kind of always be compared and always hear about how good the Patriots were playing them twice a year, sorry. I've just never seen a winning machine like that. Obviously, I kind of only more so seen the four back half Super Bowls. I kind of don't remember the earlier ones. Um, my first Super Bowl, Tom Brady would probably be the one they lost, honestly, the Giants one. Um, and I just respect his greatness too much to ever say I'm happy to see him go. I'm very sad. He was my a big part of my childhood and growing up watching football, always seeing him in the playoffs. Obviously, the Bills wouldn't be there in the playoffs, so I wouldn't root for the Patriots by any means, but I'd always kind of end up picking the team that's playing the Patriots, and the Patriots always end up beating them. So I just really appreciate Tom Brady's greatness. Thank him for everything he's done in the game. Thank him for everything. Hopefully he's done to inspire the Bills to hopefully keep winning and kind of create a culture, create a dynasty like that, and sustain success is super hard in sports. And I think he was kind of the model. Him and Bill Belichick and the Patriots were the model of sustained success and kind of being able to stay at the top for 20 years is just super impressive. And the sport's gonna miss him. 23 years at the age of 45. I really doubt that we will see another quarterback play at the age of 45 to the level of he did. I believe he was second in the league in passing yards this year, up there in touchdown passes. Just really still not in his prime, not anywhere near the top tier of his game, but still playing at a really high level. Definitely a top 10 quarterback in my opinion still. Just really gonna miss Tom Brady and thank you for everything you've done, TB12. So obviously the only other thing would be Super Bowl 57. And that'll be the last thing before we get out of here today. Um, Super Bowl 57 between the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe they were the 14-3 Philadelphia Eagles, matching up against the Kansas City Chiefs, the number one seeds in both conferences, matching up against each other. Some pretty cool storylines heading into this game. Just a really good matchup. I think both teams are both rosters are pretty well rounded. They're built well rounded. Excuse me. Some of the storylines that are pretty cool are the Kelsey brothers, Jason and Travis, playing in the first Super Bowl. That are brothers. Obviously, you had the Harbaugh Bowl back in 2014, but they were coaching. These two will be playing on 2 Sundays from now. And then you got Andy Reid playing his old team in the Philadelphia Eagles. You got the first time that 2 starting quarterbacks that will be black in NFL history. Super cool, super good quarterback matchup, and kind of I believe this is kind of with Tom Brady taking over. This will kind of you'll start to see this kind of every year now the quarterback matchups because just the amount of quarterbacks in the league that kind of can play at a higher level that are really showcasing the position at a good level now are becoming starting to become, 10, 12 quarterbacks that can really spin it and kind of give their team any given chance. That's the best thing about football. There's not a 7 game series. If your quarterback's, slinging it on any given day, or your quarterback's taking advantage of the turnover ratio or whatnot, I think there's probably 10 or 11 quarterbacks that can get it done. Obviously that's a little bit different than saying put it all on their back and they can get it done. Some of those elite level quarterbacks, I'd say maybe there's only 3 or 4 of the elite level quarterbacks, but there's probably 10, 11, 12 quarterbacks that can give your team a chance to go on a run and get in the playoffs, and you never know what'll happen. But um, super excited to see this quarterback matchup, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, that's another storyline is how healthy is both quarterbacks. Jalen Hurts playing with a beat up, banged up shoulder, and Patrick Mahomes out there playing basically on one leg. It looks like with that high ankle strain that looked pretty gruesome, pretty bad. That looked like I wasn't too sure if he was going to be able to be 100%, be able to move around out there versus the Bengals, but he was able to move around and be able to be effective on one ankle when he needed to be, and that's just the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. Um, so the matchup, I think the matchup's pretty good. Two well-rounded teams, like I said. I think the Eagles' secondary and skill position players might be a little bit better than the Chiefs right now. Just the Chiefs are a little bit more banged up. I believe Juju, McCole Hardman, and Kadarius Toney did not finish the AFC Championship game. Trav is obviously, I think Trav will be fine, but he was battling through some back spasms, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe he was a game time decision for the AFC Championship game. So I'm really curious to see how the bye week off, the week of rest will be able to help the Kansas City Chiefs and its weapons. Obviously, from what I know, the Eagles' weapons are pretty healthy. I believe Goddard's healthy. The two receivers are healthy. Miles Sanders, obviously Jalen Hurts is a little bit banged up, but the weapons are healthy. I think both O lines, I think both D lines are very very good. I think the Philly O line, it's hard not to say that they're the best O line in the league. Chiefs, their interior O line is special with Creed and Trey Smith and Joe Tooney. That's a very very good interior O line, and then obviously their tackles are not they're no jokes at all either with Wiley and Orlando Brown. But the Eagles from 1 through 5 is pretty good, and just really curious to see how the battle of the trenches kind of dictates this game and has I would think it's going to have a big impact on the outcome of this game. I believe on the D line, on the opposite side of the line, obviously the Eagles were first in the league. They had 70 sacks, which is absolutely outrageous in the regular season. 70 sacks in 17 regular season games. The next closest was actually the Kansas City Chiefs at 55, so 15 less sacks. 70 sacks. 4 players for the Eagles had multiple double-digit sacks, so 10 plus sacks. Absolute quarterback nightmare. When you're able to rush forward and able to drop the rest of into coverage, I think that puts so much stress on the opposing offense, another quarterback, and just I'm really excited to see how that matchup dictates this outcome of the game. But then flipping over to the Kansas City Chiefs defense, they're no slouch either. Chris Jones, I do try to watch a good amount of the Chiefs in the regular season just because of how much of a Bills fans won't love me saying this, but how much of a fan of I am of Patrick Mahomes. And I find some games in the regular season, Chris Jones can be a little bit quiet and disappear, but that guy seems to turn it on. Obviously, his first 2 sacks in his playoff career last game, but he always seems to turn it on. And whether he's creating pressures or obviously he's not getting sacks because those are his first 2 last game, he always seems to be a presence in the playoff time. And for the 3 matchups against the Bills, or sorry, the 2 matchups against the Bills in recent years that I remember in the playoffs, he's been a big time factor. Frank Clark, obviously, I think he has like double-digit playoff sacks in his career. So obviously a big time playoff performer, and is able to show up when the lights are bright and when the stage is the biggest. So super excited to see how the battle of the trenches is going to work out in this matchup. Very well-rounded game, like I said, 2 good quarterbacks, 2 great O-line and D-lines. Secondary for the Chiefs is a little bit young, but I think it's a little bit underestimated. I really liked Trent McDuffie coming out, and then that those other corners and other guys in their secondaries are have been impressing all year. I like that other longer corner, I believe is 35. I forget his name. Um, I really am excited to see this matchup and how it takes place. Um, no, I wanted to give a little bit of prediction, so I have it out there. I have it out there, and people can hold it against me. But like I said, being a just how much I respect Patrick Mahomes and what he's done so far, and being a fan of being a former quarterback myself, knowing it's the hardest position in sports, knowing just what he does on Sundays is absolutely bonkers sometimes. I have so much respect for Patrick Mahomes, and I love his game, and I will be rooting for him and rooting for him to kind of start his obviously, like I said today, one GOAT retires. And will this be the start of the next GOAT of Patrick Mahomes trying to chase down Tom Brady in terms of just being the greatest of all time, being the greatest quarterback of all time, being the greatest to ever lace him up, and which is absolutely bonkers saying because Patrick Mahomes has been in the league for 6 years, started for 5. So super curious if Pat's able to go out there and win number 2. Unfortunately, being a Bills fan, other than Pat, obviously Trav as well. I love Trav, but other than Pat, I can't root for the Chiefs any ounce of me. So, like I said on Twitter, it's go Chiefs today because I wanted to see the Bengals lose. It's go Eagles, or sorry, go 49ers. But as soon as those games are over, it's go NFC, and I want to see the NFC win the Super Bowl. So, with that being said, I'll be an Eagles fan. Super Bowl weekend, Super Bowl Sunday. I'm going to predict 28-25 Eagles. I just really think the outcome will come down to Pat kind of not being able to be fully himself, being able to extend all of the plays, maybe being able to extend a good amount of plays. Unfortunately, I think it'll look a little bit too much like the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not because of the O line, but because just the D line for the Eagles will get home eventually. It's great, it's good. That's no knock against the Chiefs O line, but will Pat be able to escape, and will Pat's receivers be able to create some separation for Pat to be able to throw? I think down the stretch of that Bengals game, you kind of saw with the weapons that were in, with the receivers that were in, they weren't able to get much separation. I think if you're the Eagles, you're absolutely doing anything and everything to take away Travis Kelce, double him, and live with anybody else beating you. That is definitely their bread and butter. When Travis Kelce is going, you better watch out because the Chiefs are going and they're going to score 35 plus. So if I'm the Eagles, I'm doing everything in my power to take away Travis Kelce, and make Mahomes really have to wear out that ankle through a full 60 minutes, and just eventually I think it'll get to him in terms of whether that may be a fourth quarter. He's trying to extend the play too much and he throws an interception, or they just get home too much and they're causing too much pressure and he's not able to just get the ball off because his weapons aren't able to create separation in the so quick amount of time that it takes for the D line to create pressure, get home. So like I said, I'll go 28-25 Eagles, Super Bowl 57 champions. Super excited. I think this is going to be a great matchup. I think this is going to be a great Super Bowl. I think Super Bowl, you're always super excited, and I remember the Eagles Patriots one, I believe that there was some very defensive battles in recent years. And I think it's kind of gotten back to offensive battles in the Super Bowl, and I'm really excited to see how this matchup. I personally, I hope it's more than 28-25. I just think it'll be a little bit closer to that over under of 50 than people would like, just because I think Super Bowl there'll be a little bit of nerves and take each team maybe a drive or two to get its nerves and settle themselves into the game, and just I think the details will come down, the small details will come down to kind of who wins the game and kind of have a bigger outcome on obviously bigger games when it's this one and done scenario. So can't wait for the Super Bowl. That'll definitely wrap up today's episode. Thank you for joining us on the episode 1 of Coast to Coast Gridiron Football Podcast. I will definitely be back and recording another episode around, I'd say around the Super Bowl. And if I don't drop an episode by the Super Bowl, I'll definitely post on my Twitter at Cole McGarvey. McGarvey's McGarvey. I'll post on my Twitter an update of when I'm going to post, but as of right now, I'd like to post kind of maybe a CFL free agency recap and then a Super Bowl recap, and maybe have a guest on. But if not, like I said, stay tuned to my Twitter at Cole McGarvey. Be sure to follow the YouTube page at Coast to Coast Gridiron, a football podcast. Stay tuned for the Apple Podcast channel, and when that drops, please be sure to follow that channel. Like I said, stay tuned to the Twitter. That's where everything will be updated. That's where you'll hear all the good news. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll try to post a few updates on there. And without further ado, thanks for tuning in today. And that'll be everything for episode 1. We're out.